So, just to give you all a little bit of background, my name's Mary Helen O'Connor, and I was one of the founding team members of the Prevention Research Center at Georgia State University. And I actually learned how to grant write as a PhD student at Georgia State. I have a PhD in rhetoric and composition. So that made me well prepared to write, which is one of the most important skills you can have as a grant writer. And I wanted to just share a little bit about my journey becoming pretty, I think I've had a pretty good track record getting funding for not just the PRC, which was a large CDC funded federal grant, but lots and lots of smaller projects with our community partners. And I also wanted to make this a really fun, interactive presentation. So I decided that I would combine the presentation on grant writing with virtual pet therapy because everyone who knows me knows that I have lots of dogs. And that's my dream is one day to live on a piece of property with lots and lots of dogs. And then I'll live happily ever after. Um, but anyway, I'm happy to see some of my former students and some community partners here. I just want to welcome everybody. And I would like to, this is my son's brand new puppy. So we put his hair in a ponytail, um, which is kind of hilarious. But that look on his face, I don't want anybody to be embarrassed or afraid to participate or ask questions. There are no bad questions or stupid questions or dumb questions. You can be brand new to grant writing and never have done anything, or you can be pretty sophisticated and have lots of experience. We're all here to learn about how to do this well. So let's see. If you guys want to do this in the chat, or if you would go around and just for a few minutes introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your organization and your role. Why are you here today? And could you tell me what you hope to learn about grant writing so that I make sure that I don't miss it? And for the unfortunate people who I know, I might pick on you if you don't go. So who'd like to go? Just unmute and jump in. And also tell us if you have a pet and their name.
I will start. This is Mr. Crispin Ilombe Wilonja. I don't have a pet, unfortunately. I work as student and community engagement manager at the Global Village Project School for Refugee Girls in downtown Decatur. But I also work as the pastor of Faith and Grace Lutheran Church in Decatur and Good Samaritan in Stone Mountain. So, GVP being a school that was like a non-profit, it's a private school with tuition free. So as a school, we depend on donations and all grants. So we have a very good and a strong team that is in charge of grants, but I always dream to learn. I am also pastor, as I said, of a very poor congregation, and we are trying to find ways to get funding for the congregation. And grant writing is something I really love to learn because I feel always not well equipped. And whenever I see some grant, I'm not able to because I say I'm not equipped and I cannot write. So I'm feel just discouraged. Thank you.
Thank you, Crispin. It's good to see you. Somebody else. Why are you here? Who are you? What do you want to learn about today? Do you have a pet?
I can go ahead. All right. Hi.
Yay. Thank you, Kayla.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Kayla. I'm currently an MPH student at Georgia State University. I also work for the Bureau of Indian Education under the Behavioral Health and Wellness program. I signed up today, one, to support the PRC and Mary Helen, of course, but I also want to learn more about grant writing. I'll be doing some mock grant writing for my ILE class this fall, so I think it'll be beneficial to learn more about it. But yeah, mostly here to support and learn.
Great, thank you. That's a great, a lot of people do have to do it for a class, and
Yeah,
that's how I learned. That was the way that
exactly.
I learned how to do this.
Oh, and my pets. I forgot about my pets. I've got 2 cats that live with me and then 4 dogs that live with my parents. So very much an animal
Whoa.
person.
Love it.
Hello, this is Otem Emmanuel. I'm a former JSU student. I'm currently working with Lubunga Pan-African Housing for Community Services. We have one loan, we have one grant, and we kind of have difficult to schedule to have another loan, another grant. So I'm just coming here to see how I can learn how to write some grant and help from this training. I will have some insight on how we can write grant. So I don't know. My print is what do you pay? What do you hope to learn about the grant? Oh, so I hope to learn about grant writing, and I think this is a good platform to learn it from you, Mary Ellen. Thank you so much.
One time I used to take care of my pets. So all of these dogs you see here, he used to be their babysitter,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, yes. I used to be babysitter of these dogs. So
They
I
miss
miss,
you.
yeah, I miss them too.
Okay, someone else. Please jump in. I want to hear. We have a lot of quiet people.
I am going to summarize really quickly from the chat. We have a few entries in there, and I'm just going to kind of summarize so that you are aware what people are hoping to learn from this.
Awesome. Thank you.
So we have several people are saying they want to hear others' approaches to grant writing, learn about the nuances of grant writing, and kind of learn about those practical skills. We also have a couple that are saying learning about different grant funding streams for research and community programs. We have, learning about writing compelling narratives because that's important for getting funded, realistic budgets, and eager to continue learning as work on developing a proposal for a small grant. So lots of people.
Okay, that's good news. I think that I've got everything on here. There is one thing that maybe we might talk about that I didn't include, which is once you have a grant and expanding your reach a little bit with your grants, but that Watema alluded to. But we'll go ahead and jump right in since we have a very quiet bunch. Okay, anybody, what scares you about grant writing?
I think figuring out the budget.
Okay, budgets are hard. They are. And your best friend in the grant writing effort is to find somebody, your finance person or somebody in your organization who has to handle the money because it's very hard. I can see some stuff's going in the chat. Rejection. Yeah. Yeah, and I have a little quote about that. I mean, it's a very hard, it's kind of like you feel like you're you're playing the lottery, which can be tricky and not really a lot of fun.
How to sustaining.
Oh, that's such a good point. That's such a good point. In fact, Catherine and I were just talking about that before we came on. You get some money to do a project and then the project ends. What do you do to sustain that? And that actually, that could take up a whole webinar on its own and is something that it's an ethical issue too, and it's something I care a lot about. So I'm not sure if I'm going to cover that today, but yes, that is a scary part about diving into grant writing. So let's talk about what I hoped you would know by the end of this webinar. I'd like for you to understand the different kinds of grant writing. There are lots and lots of different grants. And just so you all know that now I have moved back to Central Florida to help take care of my mother who is older. And I'm actually working full-time in a nonprofit. So I come to this discussion with both the experience of having been a faculty member at at Georgia State for many years and working on big grant projects. And then now I'm here at a clinic for the poor and uninsured in Central Florida, and I manage about, I would say, in the high 6 figures of grant funding for this organization that is comprised of lots and lots of grants, from very small family foundation grants to large grants. So there's all different kinds of grants. I would love for you all to learn some tips and tricks, because there really are quite a few just best practices tips and tricks. Learning how to develop a strategy for a proposal, like how do you take it from, okay, we found this request for proposal, how do we figure out what step is next? I'd like to answer any burning questions you have. Grant writing is a little bit shrouded in mystery, and so you should feel very open to ask me any question that you want. And then we have virtual pet therapy for everybody, because it can be pretty boring to talk about these very dry things. So I just want everybody, and these are all dogs I know and care about and are in my life. I did not take any pictures off the internet. So, and you can ask me questions about all of them. So this is Madison, who is she's a friend's dog that I take care of all the time, and she's not very well behaved. Okay, so what are all the different kinds of grants? Let's get into this. This is to someone's point, which is pretty people's fear, and the dictionary defines a grant as money that's given for a purpose, but this quote was in the definition of a grant. Every nonprofit knows the pain of spending weeks on a major grant application only to walk away empty-handed. And I hope that's not what most people experience. And I think if you take some tips that I teach you today, you should hopefully not have that feeling as often. I want to talk a little bit about the different kinds of grants from a very high level perspective. So there are government grants that are provided by national, state, and local government agencies. We are seeing lots of changes in this space. So the way that grant writing has been traditionally done for decades is changing daily. So I feel less equipped to teach you all how to pursue these. Federal grants, especially state and local grants, are very specific to where you live. I'll give you an example. So here in the state of Florida, there is an appropriation of money by the legislature that is a pool of money that free and charitable clinics in the state can all apply for. We don't have anything similar in Georgia. So in fact, the city of Clarkston, where I have been working and where many of you work, has a pool of money they have just started to award to different agencies within the community, small grants. So every local and state and city or county jurisdiction have different ways to apply for grants. And so wherever you live, or whether the community that your organization is serving, is going to have something different. Another kind of grant are foundation grants, and foundations can be just like government grants. They can be huge, large foundations like the Ford Foundation, or they can be small foundations like private foundations. Many families have a giving program where a group of family members come together and will decide as a family how to invest their money in different awards to nonprofits. Another thing that is important for all of you to get familiar with are the community foundations. You can Google right now, Atlanta Community Foundation. We have a Central Florida Community Foundation. And these community foundations kind of advise or pool different groups of other nonprofits who are awarding grants. And they also have different resources for grant writers. So it's important to be associated with the community foundation in your area. Corporations also give grants. So if you have any businesses that might be aligned with the work that you're doing that you know of, there are, I'll give you an example of one down here. There's a local, it's not a it is a corporation, but there's a business here that sells running shoes. It's called Track Shack. And they have a grant making program to support nonprofits, especially, of course, around activities. So that particular business has
grant writing.
Hello? I think somebody needs to mute, especially if you're talking about the content of the webinar. Okay, carrying on. So these corporate grants you can find that are usually from businesses that are aligned with different kinds of pillars that you're trying to that you're working in the same space. And then there are actually other nonprofits, larger nonprofits that will be awarding grants to smaller organizations and sometimes individuals. So that's just kind of an overview of the different kinds of grants. So where can you find these? I wanted to, a lot of our community partners know this from their experience working with Georgia State, but faculty at universities often, this is a part of their job. So a part of what they do is of the projects, whether it's a research project or a community engagement project, they must pursue funding. So getting to know faculty from a university or universities in your community can be one of the easiest ways to find opportunities for grant funding. You'd be surprised. There are all sorts of different opportunities, whether it's arts-based work or public health-based work or scientific work. There are all sorts of different kinds of funding opportunities. So don't think of this in terms of just public health. There are all kinds of different kinds of faculty in different disciplines who are interested in pursuing grant funding. And because it's their job, they have access to different kinds of resources that most people would have to pay for. So it's an excellent way for you to find a partner to help you pursue especially some of the larger grants. So grants.gov is where the government posts some of those large funding opportunities. It's a great place for you to look for those funding opportunities that a faculty member with experience in grant funding might find an opportunity for you. Community foundations also maintain databases that have funding opportunities. There are lots and lots of web and online resources, GrantStation, Instrumental. If you have a customer relationship management software system, a lot of those now are rolling out grant prospecting. Big foundation websites, corporate websites, different professional associations. A lot of the associations around physicians or lawyers, there are all sorts of different professional associations that award grants. Sign up for news from all of these sources and you will be surprised how many different funding opportunities you can find. Wanted to talk a little bit about what are you looking for in prospect research. One of the biggest things that people don't understand is that you need to have alignment. Are people funding the work you do? And grant reviewers are pretty good at figuring out whether you are authentically in alignment with what they're doing. So if you have an organization that is funding specifically only work in underserved communities for people who do not have housing, and you apply to that organization to support your youth exercise program, that is not in alignment, and they're not going to even review your application. It's really, that's probably the best advice I can give. Do not just pursue funding opportunities because they're funding opportunities. You really need to find some alignment in the funding and the work that you're doing. When you read an RFP or a request for proposal, you've got to be super careful. Are you eligible? Some organizations don't want to fund your work or your nonprofit if you've been around fewer than 5 years. There are all sorts of red flags for you to be looking for in that RFP. Don't waste your time applying for a grant proposal if it's not a good fit. Another thing for you to think about is if you're pursuing a very complicated, large, complex application from, say, a really big, large funding opportunity like the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation or the Ford Foundation, what are your chances? Look at the other opportunities and organizations they've funded. Look at the other work that they've done. Do you look, how do you position yourself in the other projects that they funded? Do you think that there's a shot before you end up taking weeks to work on a very complicated proposal? The best way to do that is to look at the funder website and to look at the past opportunities, the past projects that they funded. Does it look like there's a reasonable chance that you would have an opportunity? And spend quite a lot of time doing that upfront research. You know, the best advice I can give you is that if you have the opportunity to develop a relationship with program officers or other people who are working for the organization that's providing the funding, that's the best way for you to get insider information on how to submit or how to have success in your application. You can ask that person any kinds of questions you want to about your proposal. You can invite them to tour your organization or a particular project that you're doing. Make sure you attend all the informational webinars about a particular funding request. Ask questions. The people who are putting on those webinars generally are going to be in charge of managing your application. So it's really, really important that you attend and ask good questions. And then, you know, this is sort of a basic grant writing kind of thing to do. Research the funder by looking up their 990 online. So you can go look at any particular funder and find out who are they giving to and how much are they giving. What's the size of the average gift? You can do a general search, and I spend quite a lot of time when I create my prospect list looking up all of these organizations and seeing. In fact, actually, Crispin, I found people down here in Central Florida who fund GVP. So it always makes me excited. Yeah, I'll remember to send them to you. But it makes me excited when I see that there's alignment between some of the work the good work that I see in funders who, and you know, funding tends to be very local and concentrated. So people who are in your community are going to fund things in your community. But for some of the larger ones, if it's mission alignment, you know, say educating girls or educating refugees, then you're going to see some funders who are willing to fund, maybe not locally, but just because it's in mission alignment. The next thing to do for preparing your application is you've got to put your team together. And I know some of you may go, I am the team, I'm the whole team. I understand that, but you've got to have other people in your organization who may have information that you need. So you need to collect all your research. What do you need to prepare your application? Draft an outline of the application itself. If you need a login, go get a login, sign up, get into the application. I literally take every question that is going to be in the application and I create a draft and, you know, like a Word document or a Google Doc. And I prepare every single question, that answer to every single question. You're going to need to make sure that you are paying very close attention to word counts and characters. This is how I'm spending my afternoon. Actually, I have written a really great application for a national competition for an award for a hypertension management program, and I'm over word count because, you know, doctors like to use big fancy words. So you have to be really, really careful about figuring out how much space you have. And you cannot wait to the last minute to do that. You've got to be on top of it. Your budget and your financial information, you know, you really have to work with the person who manages the accounting and the funding at your organization from the very beginning. You've got to find out what are the needs, what are the expectations, where can we fit into a budget. So from the beginning, what I like to do is assemble a team. This is how we do the large grants internally at the university. We all sit around a table and we talk about how we're going to position the proposal, how we're going to break up the budget. Everybody gets their assignment. There are other things that are important, like you may need a document that's a listing of all your board members. You may need a copy of your 990 or your audited financial statements. all these things, it's better. And, you know, that's another example of something you need to know from the beginning. If you belong to a brand new organization that doesn't have audited financials, that's another one of those red flags. Don't waste your time applying for a grant if you don't have audited financials and they're requiring it as a part of your application. So knowing all of this on the front end is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of pain on the back end. You need to, these are my tips that I have learned along the way. I've talked about this. Don't wait until the grant is due at 5 o'clock and it's about 2:30 and you realize that your CEO is going to have to sign the application and you have to like e-sign it or some crazy, you'd be surprised what sorts of things you have to jump through. I actually just got an email from a web portal that is requesting additional information that they didn't request in the original grant application. You just go through everything and be really, really sure that you've got all the things you need. Make sure you have all the logins to all these different grant portals, whether it's Blackbaud or Cyber Grants or grants.gov. Write them down and have them in a place where somebody else can get them. The other thing is, inevitably something's going to happen. I had a situation last week on a statewide grant where the day it was due, the portal went down. So they stopped all of our applications and gave us an extra day to submit our portals. Now, if that happens on your end and you lose internet or you can't get it in, you're going to be out of luck. So, but if it happens on their end, you know, they get to control what happens. So make sure you have all this information and share it with someone. So you want to make sure that before you start your proposal that you know your audience. I have been so bold, which everyone who knows me knows I'm bold, to ask funders who's reviewing your application. We have a big, there's a big citywide initiative here in healthcare, and I asked the head of the organization, you know, who's going to be reading my grant application? Is it going to be physicians? Is it going to be community members? Who exactly is it? Some places will be very clear. So for example, we have a sports team in town and they actually use their employees of the organizations, the Orlando Magic. I mean, they'll tell you their employees actually review their grant applications for their foundation, which I think is super exciting. So you have to make sure that you're thinking about, okay, I have to explain this to just a regular person, a mom or dad, or, you know, just a regular person with no experience in whatever you might be proposing, whether it's like a health or exercise program or a public health program. I think that's really exciting, but that's not going to be necessarily the case. So like if you're working for highly competitive grants, let's say you partner with a university, then you're going to have a bunch of scientists or professors or different people who are going to be reviewing the grant. And because this webinar is specifically more for our community partners and not for university grant writers who don't need to listen to me talk about this, I expect that most of the grants that you all are dealing with are going to be reviewed by people who are associated with the work that is in your space. So, but I think it's always important to ask. You know, boards of family foundations are going to typically be members of that family. So get to know who it is that you think is going to be reading your application, and make sure that you write to that person in your audience. I can't say this enough times. Plan to have everything ready to go well before the deadline. I hear it so much. You do not want to be the person who is trying to beat the midnight deadline and have something go wrong. It's just really the worst feeling in the world. And if you get into an application and find out that you need your operational budget from 2022 and it's 8 o'clock on a Friday night and you need to get in touch with your CFO, it's really unlikely that's going to happen. And you don't want that to be the reason why you couldn't submit. So let's talk about different parts of the proposal. Probably lots of people who've done some grant writing are familiar with this. There's going to be, it's going to be different for everyone. I am shocked at wide variety of questions that I deal with on a weekly basis. I'm on average doing 2 or 3 grants a week here in my new job, and this is a very general outline. So an executive summary, your statement of need is where you're going to be putting all of your data. That's where you want to go in and do your hard research. So when you're, having when you're having to make the case for why the work you're proposing or the project you're proposing, this is where you would put all of that. Then you have a project description, goals and objectives, which need to be very specific and measurable. And I find that that's where most people have the have trouble coming up with something measurable. The methodology, which is how you will implement your project. Evaluation is another area that is tricky for people who are not familiar with doing that kind of work. And I think our expert in-house evaluation person is on this call, so maybe she'll chime in if we're lucky. Budgets and budget narratives are tricky. Somebody in the beginning explained that that's something that they fear. Most funders want to know what's your organizational capacity, and then a sustainability plan. And this is something I've heard a lot about lately. Funders always want to know, what are you going to do when the funding's ended? And it's kind of silly. What are you going to say? We're going to go out and find more money so we can keep doing the work. I have recently heard people say, please be honest about this. So I think, it's going to always come up, and it's good to have a good answer to be thinking about it before you're asked that question over and over again. If you work for an organization like mine that's been around for 15 years and they've met their fundraising goals every year, that in and of itself is a way to explain sustainability. But it is a tricky one. So I wanted to talk about some tips and tricks for proposals. Something that I hear over and over again is it's really great to share a compelling story or a narrative. So if you have space, instead of just always talking about the mission and the general overview of your organization, one of the things that we have here are patient stories, which are extremely compelling. So if you can tell a personal story about how the work has impacted someone's life or a community, or done something really impactful and compelling, that's a great way. It always tugs at people's hearts. It's always important that you use credible and current data. Don't reference something, especially I have found recently that during COVID, really changed the world, and it skewed a lot of our research. In fact, there's a lot of stuff that's not even available during the period of the pandemic, which can present kind of a problem. So you're either referencing something before or after, but try to stay as current as possible when you're trying to demonstrate a need. Something that I think is super important, that has helped me a lot, and that I would say has probably been where I've been the most successful in my grant writing, is showing community buy-in. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how to do that in a second. It's important that you connect the activities you're proposing to outcomes, which comes with the evaluation. Don't just say you want to do good work because it makes people feel good, or you're going to assume that it's a good thing. You need to attach it to an actual outcome. What do you actually expect at the end? Or is it the number of people that you're going to serve? Is it changing the health of someone? Is it controlling someone's A1C? Is it helping people learn to read? The other thing that I find is that people don't answer the questions on proposals. They will copy and paste from materials that they've put together. It's really, really important that you think about the question you're being asked and answer the question. Don't just fill in material that you've already written, randomly with questions that come up. And then another thing that has served me well here is that you need to address challenges honestly. I've seen this come up a lot more. What are the challenges that you expect with your project? And it could be recruitment. Maybe recruitment is a challenge. It could be just be honest about what you think could be a problem. Maybe maybe you have an outdoor activity and weather is the problem. Address it, say it. And then what is your alternative? Like, what do you think, What do you think you need to do to overcome that challenge? Okay, I'm going to slow down for a minute. Does anybody have questions up to this point?
We do have a few questions in the chat if you'd like me to read those out. I think they are quite pertinent to some of the stuff that you've already touched on. Would now be a good time for that? Perfect. So going kind of all the way back to when you're talking about the types of grants, we have a question that is, are there certain grant types that are geared more towards research versus service or delivery and implementation?
Yes, definitely. And when you read people's RFPs and you look at the different kinds of grants, that's a clear delineation. There are lots and lots of places that are not interested in funding anything but research. So look at the organization and look at the RFP. Great question.
Great. So now going just a couple slides back, or I guess kind of on this one, talking about the compelling story or narrative. We had a great question that was, when starting to write a grant, do you focus on writing the grant in an essay style format, proposal format, simply addressing the needs you can provide? And is there a method or are there various styles to writing a grant?
Almost every time they are going to break every RFP that I have done breaks it up into the sections that I presented to you in some form. They may not be exactly that way. So they'll say statement of need, or sometimes they'll say, what is your mission? What is the mission of your organization? So they're going to tell you how they want you to format it. And I think the best, it's a great question. And I think the best answer is to do exactly what they tell you to do. Do not try to use what you have and fit it into what they ask you. You really want to follow exactly what they say. If they say, tell me the mission of your organization in 150 words or less, do exactly what they ask you to.
Great advice. This one starts off a little more general, but more about do's and don'ts in writing grants and what's considered too much information versus too little information. And if you have any like turnoffs that grant readers do not like, if you could share those.
Don't misspell words. Don't make up. I think this is going to come up in a minute. I'm going to talk about AI at the end. Things are starting to sound a lot everything's starting to sound like ChatGPT, and I use AI all day, every day. But we'll talk about this a little bit. Make sure you stand out from the crowd, but do not spell things. Do not be too experimental. Do exactly what they ask you to do. That's important.
Definitely good advice.
Yeah.
And we have a couple new questions. So what's your experience when you truly believe that you wrote your proposal well and then it happened to be denied? What do you do?
Yeah, and so that's a great question with TIME Ed. We've had some big grants. They will review you and award points. There's a whole system for how they do that, especially when you're an academic and writing grants. But I think the important thing for smaller partners is that I didn't put this in here. When you get denied, you can ask them why. Ask them for feedback. If you get denied from a foundation or from a funder, say, we thought this was a great proposal. How could we do a better job next time? And I see the next question is, if I get denied the first time, is it okay to reapply? Yes, you should always reapply. However, some foundations, if you are awarded, you are not allowed to apply for a certain number of times, like for a certain number of years. There's funding cycles. So just make sure. And then sometimes, some organizations will tell you you are not eligible to apply for another couple of years. But if you get denied, generally, I think most places you are eligible. And yes, indeed, you should and definitely ask them, ask the program officer. If you know anybody that works at the organization, find out why. Ask them for a meeting.
Good point.
I have a little tickle in my throat. Sorry, guys.
No, that's fine. The last one
All
is
right.
more of a request, probably for later, but if you have a sample grant that was approved and you've written in the past that you would like to share, it would be much appreciated.
It's a great question. And yes, I'm happy to do that one-on-one. It is a weird kind of grantsmanship thing that people don't share grants. So it's kind of I know that sounds weird. It's something that I had to learn in the beginning, but I have some things that I'm happy to share with people. So, and my email is at the end of this presentation.
And I'll put it in the
So
chat as well.
yeah, and please, I'm happy to help in any way. Just be in touch. I want to make sure we hit everything. So this is SMART goals. How many people know about SMART goals? How many people hate SMART goals? I hate SMART goals. That's why I put this sad picture of Buck. Watch him and this was my sweetest puppy that I knew forever. He died this spring. But I wanted to talk about SMART goals because it's just really awful. Yeah, Kayla loves them. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. This is where I like AI. So I've been using AI to write my SMART goals because I hate doing it so much. So we want to help feed the hungry. That's a great goal, but it's not a SMART goal. So how do you make it SMART? So I took that one goal. By December 31st, our food pantry will provide nutritious meals to 500 food insecure families in Orange County, with 80% of participants receiving at least 3 days worth of groceries monthly, and 90% reporting improved food security on post-service surveys. Now, you want to be careful that you do not overpromise. So AI has been super helpful in drafting SMART goals for me, but they tend to overreach. And I'm going to talk about what AI tools I use for grant writing in just a minute. So all SMART goals mean are that you make sure you make it very specific. It can be measured, that you really think you can do it, and it's relevant to the goal and to the overall mission of what you're trying to do, and it's time bound. So you give it a specific, and usually you want to make it time bound within the project period or some part during the project period. If the project period is 6 months or the project period is a year. Okay, we're going to have to really cruise. So budgets. There are things called indirects and direct costs. This is another thing in the RFP that you want to be very clear about. This is also something that's changing. The federal government has changed, has limited what people can ask for in indirects, because most of the people on this webinar are really not going to be dealing with indirects. I just want you to know that it's some amount or percentage of a grant budget of your request that can be applied to overhead and administrative costs. Most funders don't like to fund indirects in general. So I would try to find ways that you craft your proposal to fund direct costs, whether it's salary support, whatever it is. They're going to tell you, funders will tell you in their RFPs what are allowable costs. Some will not fund consulting fees. Some will not fund travel. It depends. And that's where you have to read very carefully what allowable costs are and what allowable costs aren't. And Catherine can tell you just how tricky this is when you're preparing federal government and other government grants. They have very clear things, like you're not going to go out and budget for a bunch of alcohol. A whole bunch of government grants, you typically can't buy food. So there are all these different kinds of things that you need to be super, super aware of. A lot of you guys are going to be involved in negotiating subcontracts or partner awards, especially if you do partner with a university. I'm seeing down here that lots of funders like to fund collaborations, so that makes it more complicated and difficult for negotiating that, but they do like to see that nonprofits are working together to solve problems. Make sure that you are clear. This is a good time to include your financial person from the very beginning. They're going to be your best friend in a budget preparation. They know what things cost. They know how to break down. If you're going to say, we're going to buy 3/4 of a full-time employee's salary to support this project, they're the ones that can help you figure out what is that? How much does that FTE make? How much do benefits cost for 3/4 of a person? All of those things. Another thing people don't think about when they're planning a budget is planning for salary increases or cost of living increases, turnover, benefits. You know, turnover is another one of those another one of those things to be upfront about when you're talking about what are some of the problems that we might encounter in our grant project. And the other thing I would say is it's really important for you to get guidance from experienced grant writers with large government grant application budgets. I just really think, and I don't think you should be afraid to ask people like me or any other faculty to help you prepare those because they're complicated. And I've done that as a service to lots and lots of community partners that were applying for government grants. Okay, I did want to talk a little bit about evaluation and how you do it. It's another, I put a funny picture of our puppy because he's rolling his eyes. People are like, oh my gosh. And this is another area where ask some faculty, become good friends with faculty members because they may have a student or somebody, a graduate student who'd like to come and evaluate your project. And that can actually help you boost your application is that you're going to pull in an outside expert in evaluation to help you understand whether your project had an impact. But basically what evaluation is understanding, did our program work? What impact did it had? How big was it in concrete and measurable terms? And there's lots of different ways you can do that. Begin at the start of your proposal with how you're going to evaluate what you do. Don't wait to the end to come up with a way to evaluate it because often you're not going to think of the best way to do it until after you've thought about what you're going to propose to do. So most people think that evaluation is just like counting participants. How many people did this? But there are lots of other ways you can evaluate work. Think about stories from participants, photos. These are things that make funders excited to understand what you're doing. So have a survey about people's experience with your project. You can have logs, you can have video journals, you can develop a toolkit to help other people learn how to do it. The whole idea is how are you demonstrating your impact to your funder? And if you have questions about how to do this well, I think this is a great place to ask somebody from a university to come help you. This is the most important thing that I did that I think has been helpful in my success in fundraising and grant writing. The letters of support that I have been able to put together for different grant projects. First of all, you have to find out, are they required or are they allowed? Some won't be allowed. Most times you can, and they'll tell you how many. But who is the most important influencer to that funding organization you can find that can support your work? Is it the mayor? Is it a physician? Is it another leader of a nonprofit? Who can do that for you? And find that person and be best friends with that person. And then you want to write the letter for them. You're going to write the letter for them. Make it as easy as possible. And then you email that draft to them and you say, please, 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 could you do this for me? I need it by this time. Do not wait. Give them a couple weeks. And then you want to thank them, and then reciprocate if you have any way that you can, do the same thing for them. That has happened to me is that I've done lots and lots of letters of support. I've requested them, but then again, I've been able to offer letters of support, and that becomes really important. And people will also pay you back with opportunities to partner on other applications. So it just becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I think that writing a really compelling, important, personal letter of support is as important as the proposal. Okay, final tips because I want your questions. Websites crash, forms, all that, emergencies happen. Make sure you start submitting your stuff a few days in advance. I say that as I have to get one done by 5 o'clock and I only have 4 hours left. Have all of your accounts and passwords set up. You guys, you have to have somebody else look at your work. AI is great, and here's a couple tips. I've been using Gemini to put together all of my research. It's been excellent at helping me get a really good statement of need, get research for statement of need. And then I just dove in and actually bought Claude because I think it has been exceptional at writing outcomes and outputs and SMART goals. It's a little bit wordy, but I've really been pleased with using it. So I went ahead and got a professional subscription. You know, a lot of times where you work, it's going to tell you what you can use, whether it's Copilot or whatever. But everybody in the world's using ChatGPT, so I would try to use something that's a little more unique. And then I basically use it to draft whatever I'm doing, and then I go in and start digging and making it super personalized. But it saves a lot of time. You need to pay attention to word and character counts. It can kill a great application, and have all of your materials prepared before you sit down and start submitting. Okay, so we made it to the end. There's my first Springer Spaniel, and there's me when I'm like, 6 years old, and that's my dad. We have 7 minutes for questions. So what else can I help you with today?
There's one in the chat from before that said, are references good to include with your grants?
Oh, Amy goes, do you actually input your budget into AI? No, I actually have not, but I have used it to write a budget justification.
Smart.
Tigges said, I do not think SMART goals are that practical in some cases. I love that comment. I don't either. Let's see. What else? Other questions? Was this helpful? Did anybody find anything today that can help them in their work?
Yes, this is really very helpful. I'm thinking about starting a nonprofit, and I am a MSW student at UGA right now. So I will graduate in May next year. So I work for 3 different organizations. All of them are part-time. You guys probably know it's in Clarkston, Positive Growth Inc. So mainly providing mental health services, counseling. So it really working there. Originally, I was an intern. Just showed me, things that I haven't really known before, especially working with the immigrant and refugee community. So I've been really brainstorming just alone, what can be done. So I took grant writing class actually this summer. It was one of my electives, and this really strengthened my, what I know already. And plus, I probably will reach out to you because I have already, like, for my class, so the grant that I wrote, it was like from the beginning to the end, was on the project that I really wanted to start. And I will definitely reach out to you and consult with you. It's something that to do with aging refugees and immigrants that live in DeKalb County.
One thing I didn't put in here, and unfortunately we have taken down our website for the Prevention Research Center has lots and lots of data that could be very helpful to you and Crispin and other people who are working in refugee and immigrant communities. We have those articles, and sometimes, if you don't have a subscription, well, you're a UGA student, so you can go into the databases, but we have lots of community studies and different things that we've published, which has been one of the great benefits to the community of the research that we've done. But you can use these when you're creating your statement of need for any of your proposals. So please be in touch, and we're happy to email you PDFs of any of those studies.
Please.
Yeah, we would love to share those.
Absolutely.
So I want to make sure people take advantage of the hard work. It's taken a long time, and we've been getting lots and lots of things published recently. So it would be great. We would love to share those with you.
Thank you so much.
I can send out a list of our past publications along with the recording and the slides later this afternoon, and then you can inquire with us if you have a particular one that you'd like. So hopefully that would be.
We have a couple positive growth folks here. Tiffany Taylor is one of my good friends. We love you guys. You take such good care of the community. Thank you so much for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? Is there anything else I can help? Any specific? I would love to see if we could work through anything in the last 2 minutes.
I have a question, or maybe to share a kind of frustration about grants. So I have been, or I wrote some grants where you are supposed to first to spend money, and then they will pay you back. So it's like they say,
Oh, a
you
reimbursement.
first. Yeah. So, and it happens that you have those needs, but you are looking for fundings to, so you don't have money to spend to be reimbursed. So they say you are approved, but first spend and then send the receipt and everything. So it becomes how to deal with such a situation.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know who that funder is, because, I feel like people who operate in that kind of way don't understand how difficult it is when you're working in a nonprofit environment. It's not like you have big bank accounts and cash reserves to spend money. I mean, Crispin, that's something from the very beginning that you've got to think about. Like, do you want to even get into that kind of situation, and find out when you read the RFP if that's the kind of grant it is, because it can be very troublesome. That is also another situation where you might want to try to partner with another medium or larger nonprofit, or a university that can front the money. The most of the grants that we do at the university, that is the situation, is that you're basically, all of the state DPH grants and things like that, those are contracts. They don't give you a lump sum of money. And so you're spending the money and then you're invoicing them for reimbursement. And if you don't have a department internally of your nonprofit to handle all that paperwork and reporting, it's really, really hard. That's like a whole other webinar, is talking about grant reporting. Today, I just wanted to kind of talk about, like, how do you find grants and how do you apply for them? But, you guys can tell us what you need to hear about, and we're happy to put together more webinars. Today was very fast, and, we got through just kind of like the beginnings, and I hope it helped. I know that there are a lot of you guys that are starting your own nonprofits and trying to wade into this space. So I hope there was something here that was helpful for you. But that is a huge issue. All right, we're at time, and I know a lot of people use their lunch breaks. So it was great to see some familiar faces, and I was super happy to see some people who showed up just to support me. Thank you, Kayla. I love seeing you all the time, and I miss a lot of you guys who are up there. I hope to be back in Atlanta sometime this fall. And please, please do not hesitate to email me. We can set up a time. I'm happy to review any kinds of proposals or language, to be one of your trial reviewers. And thank you all for spending your lunch time today with me. And we will see you soon, I hope. Take care.